We start with a case that's chilling. Somewhere, probably in the English Midlands, there's a killer on the loose. And someone must know who he is. The police and a grieving family need your help. As you're about to see, the nature of the killing leads to the fear that he might well strike again. It's a macabre story made even more bizarre by this letter that was sent to the police by a man who claims to be the murderer. Do you recognise the style? It may have been written with a ruler and a mapping pen, and look in particular at those peculiar S's that are written in the form of exclamation marks. It's a bit like some computer shorthand. Now, the letter could be a decoy, it could be a hoax, but if you know who wrote it, you could save someone's life. In the reconstruction that follows, every detail is as exact as we can make it. The real locations and the actual vehicle the killer drove. The outskirts of the village of Keyworth near Nottingham on Halloween last year, Monday, October the 31st. At 9 o'clock in the morning, a body was found by a passerby. A young girl had been strangled and raped with particular brutality. Colette Aram, a trainee hairdresser, was 16 years old. The previous evening she'd set out to walk to the home of her boyfriend. She never got there. This bizarre letter was received by the police 2 weeks later. The details in it suggest it's genuine and possibly written by someone with local knowledge.
Is somebody protecting this man?
Superintendent Bob Davey heads the inquiry team. Today, 7 months and 2,000 statements later, they still haven't found the killer. And without your help, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. A man who's white, aged roughly 25 to 35, with probably brown, wavy hair.
So what the hell do we know about him? He's not going to sit in his house with the word murderer written across his chest or across his back, is he? He's got some sort of sexual hang-up. He likes young kids. It's not going to be ever so obvious when you go through the door. But talk to the people, talk to the wives. Let's find him, because he's about somewhere. Colette's left in a field, don't forget that. We're dealing with an actual savage killing. Let's sniff him out and let's see if we can find him.
The police have built up a picture of the killer's movements from the letter and from corroborating evidence. It starts at a riding stables 5 miles from Keyworth.
I was in a hut for hours waiting for a girl to return from horse riding. No one saw me.
Yet the police are almost certain that the killer hid here while girls were riding near the hut. There are forensic clues, in particular a rag stained with human semen. And at about 4:30, something happened here that was to set off a fateful chain of events.
When the car came with keys, I could not help take it.
The next time the stolen red Fiesta was definitely sighted was shortly after 5 on an estate in Keyworth. The witness, a local resident, noted that the car was probably parked there for about an hour, and they were able to give a description of the driver. Did he visit a friend? Or if he actually lives locally, did he simply go home for tea? Then, early on that Sunday evening, in the hour between 6:20 and 7:20, the suspect is known to have cruised the neighbourhood, trying to pick up young girls. One of them had a very close encounter.
She's exercising the dog at the time. He stops and he makes some pretense of asking her the way to Walls Drive. Now that was clearly a bit of a ruse on his part, because Walls Drive in actual fact was only 50 yards away and he'd probably just passed it.
Yeah, look, come here. Can you tell me where Wolds Drive is, please?
You've just come out of it.
Oh yeah. Well, where are you going anyway?
Nowhere?
Do you want a lift?
No.
Oh, come on, it's warm in here, it's dry, I'll take you wherever you want to go.
No thanks.
Well, what are you scared of? I'm not going to bite you. Come on. Come on, where do you want to go? I'll take you.
No.
This cruising is the kind of habit that he may well be repeating in other parts of the country. Has anyone tried to pick you up in this way?
No one knows what I look like. That is why you have not got me.
In fact, they do have various descriptions. He was seen yet again at about 8 o'clock by another important and a particularly observant witness.
Yeah. I'm just going to see some mates around there. Right, won't be long.
When he left the car there, he walked around the corner and then he came back and he made some comment about somebody not being in, as if it was a reference to having visited some house. Well, he couldn't have done that, because in actual fact there was no houses in that vicinity.
The witness's suspicions were already aroused when he noticed what was being carried.
Oh, yeah.
No one knows what the knife was used for, but the witness prudently took a note of the car's registration number. Colette Aram took her last walk up this hill. She left home at 8 o'clock on her way to see her boyfriend just 20 minutes away. What happened then must be speculation. But one further witness, a local resident, did provide a vital piece of information.
I know I strangled her. When a car passed, she would have got me caught. But she was not dead when I left her. Maybe the cold killed her. Cars passed when we were there. I thought she would be all right.
We're talking about Colette probably being abducted and murdered at about 8:15 on that Sunday night. At 9 o'clock that night, there's a man of the description of the man we're looking for, goes into the Generous Britain pub at Costock.
Good evening. What can I get you?
A pint of orange lemonade, please. And can I have one of those ham cobs as well?
If we accept it's the man that went in the pub, and I think we do, is a man that, if you remember, he drank a pint of orange and lemon. Now that's an unusual drink. It is in our circles. We're pints of bitter men.
Ham, he said. Ham.
Yes, please, yeah.
On holiday, are you?
No, actually, I took the wrong turning off the motorway. No, actually, I've come up to visit a friend who lives in Barton.
Oh, 91p, please.
His stories prove to be false, but they do suggest a degree of local knowledge.
He works in the power station, but he's had a bit of an accident, so I was going to visit him in hospital. Thanks.
Oh, they've gone. Excuse me.
Where's the toilet?
Oh, just back there.
We searched and we checked in the toilets and we took possession of some of the tissues. One of the tissues was sent, in fact, all of them were sent off to the forensic, and they found signs of blood and also human semen.
I go soon, and then you will never get me.
Well, the man who's determined to get him, who's in charge of the case, is Detective Superintendent Bob Davey. First of all, Superintendent, how much credence do you put in this weird letter?
Well, one's got to be open-minded about letters like this from previous experiences we've had. But there are certain aspects of this letter which make us think that it probably is genuine. That is from the man who murdered Colette.
Now, what about the description of the killer? Obviously, the man we used was an actor, and people mustn't think too much about that description. How much do we know about the killer?
Well, I shouldn't want that to mislead people, but we're looking for someone 25 to 35 years, of average height, probably light brown hair, and we know from a number of witnesses that he was wearing this brown suede or imitation suede three-quarter length coat.
Was he clean-shaven, or did he have a bit... Well, of course, he could grow a beard or cut one off since. Do we know? Well,
that's right. And, in fact, a number of witnesses in this case have given varying descriptions. But we want to be open-minded about this, and we feel that at this stage he's probably clean-shaven.
And do you think that somebody out there knows or might know who the killer is, might have a good suspicion?
Well, we think so. We think that the man's got local knowledge. We think he probably lived locally at that time. And we're looking for someone who was away from his home between 4:30 that day when the car was stolen and until about 10 o'clock that night when we know the car was brought back or was seen coming back into Keyworth.
Now, this horrible behaviour that we saw, the cruising around, trying to pick up young girls, he might presumably be doing that somewhere else.
Well, this is a possibility. In fact, this is quite a likely possibility. Bearing in mind his behaviour on this night, I mean, we've evidence from witnesses that, in fact, he was following young girls and cruising the area. I would think that that behaviour is probably still continuing.
So, if this happens to any other young girls, you want them to report it, wherever it is they live?
Oh, yes. If anyone's been approached in this way or seen anyone behaving in this manner, if they let us know, we'd be grateful.
Is there anything else that we should know? Have you had any other information?
Well, we've had a lot of information on the case, but there's a woman that rang in. She rang the local evening newspaper, and she rang one of our police stations. She was distressed. She was anonymous. She said that she knew who had murdered Colette, and then she broke down and she put the phone down on both occasions.
She knew who the murderer was, and she hasn't rung back?
Well, this is what she said. It may be, of course, that she doesn't know, but she thinks she knows. We'd like that woman to come forward and contact us again. We'll treat whatever she says in confidence.
Right, so you want her to ring in at anybody who thinks that they have suspicions about somebody who might have been in the area at the time, and the description is a fairly broad one.
Yes,
somebody between their mid-20s and their mid-30s.
That's right, and I certainly wouldn't want people to take too much notice of the actor or the descriptions that we've shown.
Right, Superintendent, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
The number to ring is 01 811 8055. If you think you can help in any way, and especially if you think you know who did it, please call now. Don't let what happened to Colette happen to someone else. You can talk openly or in absolute confidence, if you want, to the officers on the case. If you prefer, you can talk to a researcher from the programme. 01 811 8055. Or you can, if you want, call any time to the incident room at Bingham in Nottinghamshire. 0949 38282. Bingham 38282. Now, tonight, the police need your help to solve the murder of Caroline Osborne. As always, this is the number to ring if you can help. We'll be showing this and local numbers throughout the programme.
At the time of her death, Caroline was 33 and running a successful small business near Leicester. It's now almost exactly a year since she was killed, but still the police don't know certain crucial details of her life or about what happened. What follows now is a reconstruction based on the evidence there is of Caroline's last hours. At 6 o'clock on the evening of Friday, July the 29th last year, Caroline Osborne had finished work and returned home to 107 Danvers Road off the Narborough Road in Leicester.
There you go, Tammy. You're on now.
Caroline ran a small business, clipping and grooming dogs. She had over 700 customers, so she was quite a well-known figure in the area, collecting and delivering her clients' pets.
Don't worry, Tammy. We'll go for a walk soon, yeah? Yeah. There you go.
People who knew her say she was a quiet person, and there was really only one subject she loved to talk about, and that was dogs. Caroline loved all animals. She'd had the holiday of a lifetime in November in 1982. These snaps were taken on safari in Kenya with her friend. Caroline enjoyed the country so much that she decided she wanted to live there. So, shortly after returning home, she advertised her house and business for sale. And then, without telling anyone, took herself to a local aero club and started a course of flying lessons. She felt that Kenya was a place where she'd need to be able to fly. It was about 6:30 when a neighbour saw Caroline setting off from the back of the shop to exercise 2 dogs. An eyewitness reports seeing her minutes later taking the path towards Aylstone Meadows, her usual route for walking her black Labrador and her neighbour's white dog, Tammy. And here was the last definite sighting of Caroline Osborne. Aylstone Meadows is a strange mixture of public park, river and canal, and industrial buildings. It's a popular area for local children to play on, and there's a busy section of the Grand Union Canal with its locks and towpath. This footbridge was part of her usual walk. But there are some aspects of Caroline's life and business which still puzzle the police. For example, her van was a white Ford Escort. But more than 80 different witnesses recall seeing Caroline using a blue van to collect and deliver dogs at customers' houses and to take dogs for walks at a nearby park. The van didn't belong to Caroline, the precise make is not known, and neither the van nor its owner have ever been traced. Another few minutes' walk, and Caroline would have passed St Mary's Mills Lock. She was a private sort of person. There were some men in her life who even her closest friends didn't know. Some the police haven't yet traced. In March 1983, one of Caroline's customers collecting her dog from the shop saw someone else there. He seemed quite at home and remarked on the fact that they were all wearing blue clothes. The man's trainers and tracksuit trousers and his t-shirt were all dark blue. He wore a silver bracelet and digital watch and a silver medallion. So far, the police haven't been able to trace him. There was one other man seen with Caroline. A neighbour saw a man coming out of the back door of the shop and helping her with the dogs. He too has never been traced. Since he clearly knew Caroline, the police are anxious to identify him. At this point, Caroline could have taken one of two routes, but a later possible sighting seems to suggest she took this path towards the gas holder. Beyond this corner and from the other side of the canal, another witness caught a glimpse of someone, possibly Caroline, with a man running after her. That sighting was at 6:50 p.m, and if that was her, it was the last time she was seen alive. By 7:10, the black Labrador was seen heading home. The neighbours became concerned when they noticed the dog exhausted back at the shop without Caroline. One of them went to look for her on the meadows, but by 10:30 that evening, when there was still no sign of her, he telephoned the police. The following morning, the police search resumed, and it was then that the fate of Caroline Osborne was discovered. All night, the neighbour's white dog had been guarding her body. Caroline had been stabbed to death. Well, Detective Superintendent Alan Stagg is heading the investigation. It's a very large area to cover this, isn't it? Have you accounted for all the people on that day in Aylestone Meadows?
No, unfortunately we haven't. We have got 500 people sighted down there that day, but we've still got 25 unidentified men alone that we haven't been able to trace.
So you need them to come forward?
Yes, we do. It is a very popular place at that time of the year, but we've still been unable to trace them.
Anyone who saw anybody that day. What about those two men we saw?
Yes, the first one, the olive-skinned man with the medallion, he was seen in the shop in March by the witness, but more important, he was seen in the Huntsman Public House on the Narborough Road in Leicester on the following Sunday. And obviously, he appeared to be local, so he's not come forward, and we're anxious to trace him.
And what about the other man?
Well, the other man was seen there in May and June time, 2 or 3 occasions by a neighbour, and we think he may well have been a boyfriend of Caroline's, so obviously we need him to come forward as well.
Now, could that blue van have belonged to one of the two men, do you think?
Could have done. Totally bemusing. You know, we've got over 80 sightings of that blue van being used by Caroline Osborne, and yet we just don't know why she was using it.
Well, surely somebody must know something about that.
You'd have thought so. You know, I would have expected somebody who's lent to the van to come forward and see us, and yet they haven't. And I appeal tonight, of course, for the public to, if they do know anything about anybody lending her a blue van, then to contact us.
And finally, she had been married, hadn't she? Had her ex-husband, Gary Osborne, been able to help you?
Yes, we've had long chats with Gary, because obviously he's a singer. He has been with the Ray McVeigh Orchestra in the past, but in the 1970s he was with the Ivor Kenny Sound in Leicester, and a lot of people would have known Caroline through Gary. So I asked the public, of course, that if they do know Gary and have seen him with Caroline, then of course to contact us.
Right, and as we saw there, Caroline looked rather different there. So the number to ring in confidence, if there's any way you think you can help, is here on 811 8055, or at the incident room at Wigston in Leicester on 0533, that's the code for Leicester, 813 121, or on Leicester 813 122. That's Leicester 813 121 or 813 122. Well, tonight we want you to watch a reconstruction of a strange and sinister case which has been baffling police for the last 5 months. It's the killing of a little boy. The motive is unclear. What we do know is that the case involves a mysterious nighttime visitor, a disappearing television set, and a car left with its headlights on. The victim, who died from a savage beating, was 9-year-old Christopher Laverack. He lived in Humberside in the Anlaby district of Hull. Every other Friday, when he wasn't spending the weekend with his father, Christopher Laverack was brought here to number 7 Harpham Grove to stay with his half-sister and her family. His mother and stepfather made sure that he got there in time for his favourite TV show, The Fall Guy.
Big news from minstrels. Now you get 20% extra.
Christopher always had a good time staying with his half-sister Kim and her husband Stephen Hines. Despite a complicated family life, Christopher was a happy kid. Friends knew him as a shy and sensible lad who loved motorbikes and watching TV. He was getting on well at school and had just recently joined the local church choir. That night, as often happened, Christopher's half-sister Kim was driven to a local pub, the Crown, where she worked as a barmaid, leaving husband Stephen with their own young son and Christopher. At the pub in Marfleet Lane, Chris's mother and stepfather stopped off for a drink with Kim before going to visit relatives. Later that evening, with Christopher still watching the television and the baby in bed, Stephen decided to go out. This was the last reported sighting of Christopher Laverack.
I won't be long. Keep an eye on Martin. What sort of crisps do you want?
Cheese and onion, please.
And 2 cheese and onion.
Stephen also went to the Crown, the pub where Kim was working. Back at Harpham Grove, an unfamiliar parked car had caught the eye of a neighbour, who Christopher called Auntie Marge. She was wondering why the car had been left with its headlights on.
Steve. Steve. Steve, I want to talk to you. Steve, let me in. Steve, I want to talk to you.
The voice came from someone standing outside Steve's front door. At the dividing wall, Auntie Marge heard the front door being opened. Then all seemed quiet, so she went off to bed. A few minutes later, she heard the car pulling away. That car, according to the best evidence police have, was shaped like this. It's never been traced.
You don't get all this stuff on the top. You get your
By now, Stephen had spent about an hour in the pub.
Chris? Chris?
Apart from the baby crying, the house was strangely quiet. The television had been ripped out. And then it dawned. Christopher had gone. Stephen ran to tell Kim and then called the police. They started a search in and around the house. Christopher had never run away, and his mother had no idea where he was. His real father was contacted, but he hadn't seen Chris either. The search went on into the night. It was intensified at first light, fanning out across wasteland near Harpham Grove. But there was no sign of Christopher. Nor was there the ransom demand that was half expected. Christopher Laverack had now been missing for 36 hours. Expecting the worst, police divers began dragging a nearby stretch of water. But the discovery was not made by the police. At the same time, 10 miles away, alongside Beverly Beck, this man was taking his usual Sunday morning stroll with his dog. Christopher Laverack had died as a result of severe head injuries inflicted, the police believe, on Friday night. And Detective Chief Inspector Baker is in charge of that case. Now, that bag that Christopher was found in was actually a carpet bag, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a Treader underlay carpet bag, and this is one identical to it.
And are you hoping that somebody might find that gone missing, maybe lost it or lent it?
Yes, hoping that somebody in the Humberside or Beverley area, sometime prior to the 9th of March, might have thrown one away or might have lent one to somebody or might have left one outside and it suddenly disappeared or something like that.
How much do you know about how and where he died?
Well, we know that Christopher died on the Friday night, and we know that he died of severe head injuries, and we also know that he died in a field which contained growing winter barley.
Now, forensic evidence shows that he died on the Friday night, but it wasn't until the Sunday morning, in fact, that he was found 9 miles away from Harpham Grove in Beverly Beck. How do you think he might have got into Beverly Beck?
Well, obviously we think he's gone in some form of vehicle. Which vehicle, we don't know.
Maybe that car, that unidentified car from that night?
Well, obviously we're very interested in that vehicle, and despite numerous appeals to the press and the TV, the driver of that vehicle hasn't come forward.
But somebody at the Beck that weekend may have seen something, surely?
That's right, and we've had a good response from the public. Many people have come forward, but we've never had a sighting of Christopher's body in the Beck until it was seen actually on the Sunday morning.
So you think somebody perhaps would have parked on that bridge or driven past that bridge and seen something?
Somebody could, yes. We did get a lot of reports of vehicles stationary on that bridge, and there's roads that go alongside the Beck, and the boy's body could have easily been put in from there.
Now, what about this television set? The strange thing about it is that it was ripped out from the back of the set, the flex, while it was still plugged in.
That's right. This is the actual flex. This end was plugged into the wall in 7 Harpham Grove. This end went towards the television set, and we believe there's a piece missing from here. So what we're hoping to trace is the television set, and we're hoping that somebody might know of somebody who has got a television set with an unusually short cable, or somebody's asked to repair one, or somebody sold one, or somebody's now got one in the possession. And we're also asking for farmers who have been harvesting in fields of winter barley to keep an eye open for this television set, and we regard this as a vital piece of evidence.
We might find who killed Christopher Laverack if we can find that television set.
Could well be the case, yes.
Mr. Baker, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, if you've got that ITT television or know anything else about the murder, the number, remember, 01811 8055, or you can phone Humberside Police Direct at Hull. The number, Hull 796271. That's 0482 for Hull 796271.
Well, this month we start with the murder of a policeman. You'll almost certainly have read about the case, and it appeared in the press on the same day as Mrs. Gandy's death was reported. It was 7 weeks ago, Wednesday the 31st of October. Police Sergeant John Speed, a married man with 2 children, was buried at Leeds Parish Church, ironically just 50 feet from where he'd been gunned down. He was shot as he went to help a colleague who was gravely wounded. Sergeant Speed and his colleague were both unarmed, and on the face of it there appeared to be precious little motive for such violence. But West Yorkshire Police believe the shooting may be linked to 2 previous robberies in the area. We start our reconstruction with a look back to 1981.
Police, please. Hello? Could you send somebody round now to outside Leeds Parish Church? There's two guys that look like they're going to pinch a car. It's a yellow Mark III Ford Cortina. It's right outside the door, right opposite the front door.
2977, will you attend Kirkgate near to the parish church? A report of two men acting suspiciously near to a yellow Ford Cortina saloon.
Just a minute. Where are you going?
I'm not going anywhere. Why? What's wrong?
We've had a report that two men have been acting suspiciously round this car park. Is it you?
I've done out.
You've been messing about with this Cortina?
No.
Have you been on this car?
I've checked around the car park, and all is in order.
2977, couldn't you get Sergeant Speed to come to the front of the parish church, Kirkgate? (10:13). 10:13. I've been shot. Get an ambulance. 2977 to control. Description of gunman. He's a white male, about 40 years of age. Stocky build, wearing a grey flat cap and an olive green army-type jacket. Get out of the back.
What the hell's going off, mate?
Just leave me then.
Put the guy there. Everybody's fighting it. Come on then.
Belgav control to all units. Suspect has hijacked a Port Transit van. The registration number, Echo Whiskey Uniform, 455 Yankee. It's blue in colour and has Stanton roofing painted on the side with a ladder fixed to the roof.
Stantons. It's the police from Gipton. Can you put the light on top of that van? It'll help us to find it. Okay, thank you very much.
The Indian Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi, has been shot dead by assassins in Delhi. The shooting happened just a few hours ago, and Mrs. Gandhi was rushed to hospital for...
Spot of weather, please, Francis.
Yes, there's a splash reaching Scotland and Ireland now, and it's going to be a damp Halloween for Scotland and Ireland. Further south, England and Wales looks pretty good today. It's going to be warm, quite sunny. There's some morning mist to clear. There's the odd patchy black cloud.
Of the sad death of Mrs. Gandhi, but we will be bringing you that tomorrow.
There we are, thank you very much indeed. Very warm, extraordinarily warm for the time of the year, don't you think?
Yeah, it should be about 12, 13. It's probably 16, 17 this afternoon, yeah. So Indian summer.
keep your distance, keep it under observation, and don't forget he's armed. I'll send some assistance. Yes, 10 post.
Milgaff Control to Firearm Unit 51. Will you attend St Elmo's Grove, Leeds 9 immediately? The hijacked vehicle has been recovered in that area. Will you conduct an immediate search there? Outside the Anglers Club in Nippet Lane. He's a white male, 5 feet 10 inches, well built although not fat, around 40 years of age, mousy coloured hair but grey in collar length. He's wearing a brown and grey checked cap, olive green combat type jacket and dark trousers. Can I reiterate that this man is armed and dangerous? If seen, do not approach but inform control.
Well, the man in charge of the inquiry is Detective Chief Superintendent John Conboy. Firstly, why are you linking those two raids we saw at the beginning of that reconstruction, the two raids in Pudsey in 1981?
Because the gun used and the bullets used are very similar to the gun and bullets used in the shooting of the two police officers.
And what do we know about this gun?
It's a .38 revolver, similar to that gun there.
Right. People in the underworld might know about that gun.
It may well be that somebody has sold the gun within the last few months in Leeds, yes.
All right, now let's try and establish the geography. All of this, of course, took place within a very small area. In fact, within 1.5 miles of Kirkgate Parish Church, where the shooting happened. The gunman then ran off, chased by Constable John Raj, to this point here, where he hijacked that blue van at Rhodes Filling Station. The next sighting we have is about a mile away in St Elmo Grove, where, incredibly it seems, he stayed with the van for over 3/4 of an hour. Then, having been spotted by a patrol car, he abandoned the van, taking with him a blue helmet, and headed off this way. Here at Torrey Road, he was seen getting rid of the blue helmet. But the trail didn't end there. There were 4 more sightings of the gunman before he reached Leeds Anglers Club at Nippets Lane, where he was seen for the last time, as far as we know, by that woman hanging out her washing. Now, why would he have spent 3/4 of an hour with the van?
Well, I feel he was hiding in public in that area. It's a quiet area of Leeds, off the main York-Leeds road. It may well be he's waiting for his accomplice to arrive there, or it may well be that he was going to carry out a robbery at a nearby post office or building society.
Right. What had happened to his accomplice, incidentally?
Well, his accomplice was last seen running through the Garden of Rest and onto the railway embankment, and we don't really have any more sightings of him then.
But I gather he was seen, or at least conceivably it was him, was seen talking to a woman by some people working in an old people's home.
There's a possibility he was seen on the Eber estate of Bermontofts by people in the old people's home talking to that woman there.
Now,
yes.
this woman hasn't come forward yet, despite your appeals.
No, we would like her to come forward. She's about 45'4" with fair hair. I've made a number of appeals for her to come forward, and I feel she should do, because I think she gave that man directions.
And what about that man? What do we know about his appearance?
Well, he's between 30 and 40, 5'10" to 6 foot. He's got dark brown hair. He was wearing a dark donkey jacket and green overalls.
Presumably what you want from the public any sightings that they might have had of these two men on that morning? It was, what, Wednesday the 31st of October? All this happened between roughly 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning.
Well, it may well be that people in Leeds may have seen those two men together before, and I would hope they would come in and tell us if they have. Any criminal in Leeds, and we've had a great deal of help from the criminals of Leeds, may identify them. I would hope they'd come forward. And if there's anyone who may have kept them in a guest house, lodging house or hotel the night before, I would like them to come forward.
The underworld really has helped you try and trace this man?
They have, yes.
Here is the Crimewatch video fit of him. There you see him coloured in. Maybe you could just repeat what we're looking for.
Well, he's about 40 years of age, 5'10". He's stocky build. He was wearing that check cap, olive green combat jacket, dark trousers, and as I said, he's about 40 years of age.
In the reconstruction, he had a rather stiff sort of gait, a rather strange run. Was that because he'd hurt himself, or does he normally run like that?
He may have hurt himself near the wall at the parish church. A number of witnesses have said he ran pincy-toed.
Right. John Conboy, thank you very much indeed. If there's any way in which you think that you might be able to help, please do call us. Here's the number, 01811 8055. Remember, there's a very big reward. You can talk to a BBC researcher if you prefer. You can call the police directly in Leeds. The number there is Leeds 454 197. That's 0532 454 197. And let me stress that you can call in the strictest confidence. Now the first of tonight's reconstructions. It's the most controversial murder hunt in Britain. It's a case that's repeatedly made headlines and about which questions have been raised in Parliament. The murder of Hilda Murrell. Miss Murrell was 79. She lived in Shropshire and she was a rose grower of international fame. There have been suggestions that MI5 was involved in her murder, that she was under surveillance because she was an active opponent of nuclear power, or because during the Falklands War her nephew had been a naval intelligence officer at the time the battleship General Belgrano was sunk. Well, the police say the evidence points in quite another way. They're increasingly convinced the murder was a common burglary that went wrong. What you're about to see is based on the detectives' files and therefore on the police interpretation of events. You're going to see evidence that's never been shown before. It's almost exactly 12 months since the crime. The date, remember, Wednesday, the 21st of March.
Just before noon that day, friends remember seeing Hilda Murrell in the Abbey Foregate area of Shrewsbury. She'd been shopping at Safeways and drawn some money from a nearby bank when she was seen getting into her white Renault car. She'd only half a mile to go to the detached house in Sutton Road, where she lived alone. That lunchtime, however, someone may have got there before her. From what was later found at the scene of the crime, police know she put some of her shopping away. They also know that at some stage she must have gone upstairs. Hilda Murrell was apparently attacked inside the house and tied up while the intruder carried out a search. From the kitchen, one of her knives was probably taken, and though the burglar searched her handbag, he ignored a cheque card and chequebook, concentrating on the cash she'd taken from the bank that morning. The living room curtains were drawn, and as her attacker continued his search, he helped himself to a drink. Even at this stage in the escalating violence, her attacker may not have wanted to kill her. And in one of the strangest twists to the story, he forced her out of the house and into her own car. From her house in Sutton Road, the first landmark the car passed was a roundabout known locally as Column Island. It seemed to be heading straight for the centre of town. It was then seen close to the Monkmoor Road traffic lights. Hilda Murrell was slumped in the passenger seat, and the car took a right turn away from the town centre. A couple of minutes later, at the far end of Monkmoor Road, it passed Shrewsbury Police Station, and half a mile further on, it was heading out into the Shropshire countryside. It crossed Heathgate's roundabout and took the final exit, travelling east. A couple driving towards town remember a white car swerving past them as it sped out into the countryside. The car was following a back route to Newport until it turned off into a country road called Huntington Lane. It was about this point along that narrow country lane that police believe Hilda Murrell, already bruised and battered, began to come round.
Sit still. Sit still. You'll get some of that. Some of that. Right? Hello. Hello. Get you.
We know from the tyre tracks that it was here that the car skidded off the road, and it's likely that Hilda Murrell was then forced to get out.
Get out!
Her attacker then began a frantic attempt to get the car moving again, shoving a book under the front wheel. It could have been at this point that she took the car's ignition keys. They were later found in her pocket. And despite her age and appalling injuries, Hilda Murrell may have made one last attempt to get away.
Oi! Oi! Come here!
Whatever happened, police believe that her attacker bundled Hilda Murrell off that country lane and into a field. Evidence found there seems to suggest she was stabbed and beaten as she was forced across the field and dragged towards a small coppice, where she would die some hours later.
Three days later, Hilda Murrell's body was discovered a quarter of a mile away from her abandoned car. Now, in that reconstruction, we were as accurate as we could be. We used Hilda Murrell's own car and, where possible, her own possessions. Her home, though, in Sutton Road has been sold and it's been changed inside since, so we used instead a neighbour's house. We do, though, have a picture of the real house taken when the crime was first discovered. The detective leading the inquiry, Detective Chief Superintendent David Cole, is going to take us through the scene of crime video taken by the police inside Hilda Murrell's home on the weekend that her body was found. Now, first of all, you have pictures of the breakfast room.
Yes, the first shots we're going to see are of the breakfast room. And these quite clearly indicate a search of drawers and cupboards. And we move on now to the table in the breakfast room, showing that her handbag and her purse had been searched, and we know that a quantity of money was taken out of the purse.
Now, no sign there, particularly of documents being rifled?
No, there were various documents within the house to do with her research into the Sizewell B project, and it would appear that none of them were disturbed.
It was, though, said that the telephone had been tampered with, that the phone had been carefully disconnected.
Yes, it was. There's been a lot of speculation about the telephone, and the next shot, I think, shows quite clearly the telephone as we found it and indicates that it had been ripped out, the wires had been ripped out of the junction box and had been ripped away from the wall. All the wires had been ripped out of the junction box, as you can plainly see in that shot.
Had anybody made any sophisticated attempt to bug the phone, as far as you could tell, to tamper with it?
None whatsoever, and that has been confirmed by GPO engineers.
Right. Now, we know that she went upstairs and that he went upstairs. What did you find when you went to the top of the house?
Well, there was a lot of activity upstairs, quite obviously. The next police video shot shows you the stairway, going up the stairway, and at the top there is a broken balustrade, and we believe that Miss Murrell may have been tied to that balustrade while the intruder was searching other parts of the house.
There's the missing balustrade.
That's
What happened
right.
to her then?
Well, she was then apparently taken into a bedroom, and we've got a still shot of the bedroom. We know that there was some violence in that bedroom and also sexual activity because of human semen that was found on an article in the bedroom, and also similar material found on an item of her clothing.
Miss Murrell was 79 years old.
Yes, this is a particularly disturbing feature of this assault.
Now, that doesn't make it sound as though it was an ordinary motive of going for papers, yet there have been some peculiar things going on, or so it seems. For example, her document she was writing to oppose the Sizewell B power station, the final draft is said to have been missing.
Well, that isn't so. I have in front of me the final draft that she was working on, and we've been able to check that by examining her diary. And her diary for the evening before her death quite clearly shows that this is the paper that she was working on that particular evening.
Do you have any other clues as to who did it?
Well, we have, yes. We have a number of people who saw a man in the car, and we recovered certain items from the car. I've got a couple of them here. We have a Hamlet cigar wrapper, which was found in Miss Murrell's car. She was a non-smoker. She was anti-smoking. It's unlikely that it belonged to anyone connected with her. And I also have a snare peg, which was found in the glove compartment of the car, which
Looks
appears
like a
to
tent
be...
peg to me.
Well, it could be a tent peg, it could be a gamekeeper's or poacher's snare.
Right. Now, as you say, she was seen in the car with a driver. What description do you have of the driver?
Well, he's a white male. He's probably in his middle to late 30s. He's averaged a thick set. He's got medium brown hair. It's neatly cut. He's got a fringe. And he was wearing the anorak that you see on the picture there, and we believe it's got a D ring in the centre of the back. We also have a further description of a man who was seen running away later from the scene of the attack.
Now, what do we know about this
Well,
man?
during the afternoon, a number of people saw a man running away from the scene where Miss Murrell had been left. He was wearing ordinary grey clothing. He was wearing training shoes. He didn't appear to be particularly fit. He was running towards Shrewsbury town centre. We lost him, the last sighting we have of him is a place called Heathgate's Island on the outskirts of Shrewsbury.
Now, it seems that he didn't come by car to the house, otherwise he presumably would have gone away in his own car.
That's a distinct possibility.
How did he get there, and how did he get away?
Well, we're particularly interested in anyone who may have picked up a hitchhiker that particular morning and dropped him off at Shrewsbury. It's a very busy through route on the main A5 road. Her house was close by, and we're also interested in how he got away, and he may well have been picked up by a vehicle as a hitchhiker and taken away from Shrewsbury.
Any idea why he took Miss Murrell with him? I mean, clearly he wasn't intending to head for those woods. The car went off the road by mistake.
I'm afraid that's a mystery. Until we find him, we won't know.
Well, let's hope you do find him, Mr. Cole. Thank you. If you think that you can help West Mercia Police in any way, here's the number. It's 01811 8055, 01811 8055. As I say, you can talk to detectives on the case or to a BBC researcher. You can call West Mercia Police direct if you want. They're in Shrewsbury on 52617. That's 0743 for Shrewsbury, 52617. In our next reconstruction, we're taking you back exactly 7 weeks to Preston in Lancashire. It's an especially sad story because the victim was a 9-year-old boy, Imraam Vohra. We start in Avenham in Preston on Thursday the 11th of July. At Frenchwood Junior School, it's the last lesson of the day.
Not just cut in half the E shape, but we get a mirror image. If we put a mirror there, as we've tried before, we get the full E. So what I want you to do with your worksheets is take the first worksheet with the capital letter shapes on. And
Imran was a cheerful boy. His teachers found him reliable, and he was popular with classmates, though reserved and rather quiet.
that you can find in those capital letters.
He loved sports. Just the previous afternoon, he'd won several prizes at the school's sports day.
Is that the only line symmetry? Is it? You've checked it. OK, children, there's the bell. We need to pack away quickly today, so can you just slip everything into your drawer, please? Take care going home, and we'll see you tomorrow.
School finished at 3:15. But this Thursday, Imran and some of his friends stayed in the playground to play marbles for a while. The game over, Imran would normally walk home with his friends.
Are you not coming home today? Nah, I'm ready for here for someone. I'll see you tomorrow.
He didn't say who he was waiting for. From this point on, precisely what happened is unclear. When one of Imran's classmates left the school, Imran was still standing at the gate. She thinks she saw a young Asian man across the road.
Imran!
And she says he called out to Imran. She's fairly sure he crossed over to the man and that they walked off together. Less certain is a sighting just after 4 o'clock in Avenham Lane. A witness saw a small boy crying. He thinks the boy was wearing a beige and brown anorak with a red stripe, similar to Imran's. The boy disappeared down Shepherd Street. Another possibility, about 4:15, a motorist saw a boy a little further down Avenham Lane. He was in the company of a scruffy-looking man, maybe in his 40s. They were heading in the direction of Avenham Park. It's a popular area with open spaces and woodland used by many people as a shortcut. At about 4:30, this woman clearly recalls seeing a small boy in a beige and brown anorak. The boy was on his own, and when she glanced back, he was gone. Any of these sightings could have been of Imran, for he often came to Avenham Park to play. He had a series of dens all over the park, and he'd spend many afternoons here, sometimes with friends, often alone. What's known for certain is that on Thursday afternoon, Imran failed to turn up for lessons at the local mosque. He was due there with all the other Muslim children in the area at 5 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, when he still hadn't come home, his parents were so worried that they decided to call in the police. Neighbours were alerted, and on Friday morning, the police launched a major inquiry. They appealed for information in English and in Urdu.
9 साला इमरान वोहरा कल से पहर कोई 3:30 बजे आखिरी बार एवनहम पार्क के नज़दीक फ्रेंच वुड जूनियर स्कूल के बाहर देखा गया था। इसके बाद आपने अगर उसे देखा हो या इसके बारे में कोई खबर मिली हो तो मेहरबानी करके मुकामी पुलिस से राब्ता कायम करें। इमरान भूरे
They began a thorough search of the whole district. It went on late into Friday night and was resumed at 5 a.m., first light on Saturday. Many of the family's friends and neighbours joined in to help. 40 minutes later, at a place known locally as the tipping area, here near the old tram bridge, they found Imran.
Come here, quick! Come over here!
He was lying in one of his dens. He'd been sexually assaulted and strangled. Superintendent John Boyd, this is a ghastly crime.
Yes, it is. It's a horrible sexual crime. Imran was a victim of a horrible sexual assault. He probably, when the assault was being committed, he probably had a ligature around his neck. This ligature subsequently strangled him.
Now, there must have been people who saw Imran that day and who saw whoever was the killer, though they may not have realised anything significant in what they saw. Let's just remind ourselves that we've got a map which shows where the body was found. Yeah. And there it is by the old
tram bridge
in Avenham Park.
Yes.
Now, the school is where in relation?
The school is on the right.
Frenchwood Junior School.
About 400 or 500 yards away.
OK. Now, it was there at Frenchwood School, of course, that one of Imran's friends saw him with an older man. She's pretty sure of that, isn't she?
Yes, she is a schoolmate of Imran's, and she knew Imran. She saw Imran standing at the school gate, and she saw a man across the road who was described as being about 5'10" or 6 foot, in his late 20s, slim, black hair. She just said he was an Asian man, and she knows the Asian community.
Now, obviously, we badly need to find anyone who knew Imran in relation to an older man.
Yes, that's correct. If it is true that this man picked Imran up from school, then Imran must have known him beforehand, and we would like to know of the association.
Now, what about people in the park? There must have been lots of people, potential witnesses there.
There's a lot of people in the park who originally were unidentified. A number of them now have been identified. We urgently need these people to come forward. They might think they can't help us, but we need to eliminate them because we have their descriptions, and probably we have the description of the killer.
Now, I gather that the park is sometimes used by gays, by homosexuals. They may be reluctant to call in.
Yes, a number of them frequent the public conveniences in the park. It's their focal point. We have interviewed a large number of them, but in fairness to them, they are cooperating and they are giving us information.
There was a boy seen running from the park. I know that you really want to trace him badly, to eliminate him.
About 4:15, a boy was seen running along South Meadow Lane away from the park. He's about 15, fairish ginger hair, a cream-coloured shirt and a grey sweater and green slacks. The thing about him was that he looked frightened, and he was running faster than he would normally do on a jogging run.
And I know that a week before the murder, a man was seen with a younger Asian boy.
On the Thursday before the murder, about 400 yards away from the murder scene, a man who is described as being 35 to 40 years was seen in Miller Park, which adjoins Avonham Park, at 4:30. He was seen in some bushes with a 10-year-old boy who was an Asian boy. There is no evidence that this was Imran, and it probably wasn't Imran.
OK, so you need to find him and indeed anyone else to eliminate themselves, but also just in case they saw something which will fit in with something else
We
that you
need
know.
these people to come forward to assist the inquiries.
All right, and kids, of course, if you can help in any way, I don't know, if you were smoking in the park or doing something you don't want to tell your parents, please do. It's so important. If you think you can help with any leads at all, please tell your parents, please call us. It's in confidence. And here's the number, 01811 8055. The incident room is at Preston on 54811. That's 0772 54811.
Our last reconstruction tonight concerns the murder of a 61-year-old shopkeeper in Bristol exactly 6 weeks ago. Roy Page ran a corner sweet shop in the old part of Bedminster and regularly stayed open from early morning to late in the evening. His body was found in the back of the shop on Thursday the 18th of July. Whoever killed him left behind one vital clue, this earpiece. A man wearing an identical earpiece and claiming to be a gas board engineer visited two tobacconists in the north of Bristol on the morning of that same day. By the afternoon, he had then moved south of the city to Bedminster, which is where our reconstruction begins. Roy Page had been running his corner shop for 10 years. He often spent a lot of his day watching the television between customers. Bedminster is a small community, and most of his customers were regulars.
Hello?
He had a safe in the back of his shop, but had a habit of leaving it open to get change when he needed it. Since his wife died 3 years ago, his sister Shirley came round every Thursday to help in the house.
This money here, I'm putting it back in the safe.
You worry too much.
Okay, I'm
You
off now
organise
then.
it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye, sis. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
At about 4:30 that afternoon, a man was seen hanging around outside the shop. He was carrying what looked like a small transistor radio and wearing an earpiece and headsets. Minutes later, the same man was seen outside another tobacconist in the next street. Tom Coles, who lives opposite Roy, would pop in several times a day.
Hello, Roy. Can I have an empty cigar, please?
Hey, how was earlier today?
Well, not too bad. Just part way, I suppose. I'll see you later on. Okay, bye for now.
At 5:15, the man in blue overalls was seen crossing the road away from Roy's shop.
I'm checking for gas leaks in the area up and down this road. I've got to meet round the corner. Have you got any gas leaks here at all?
No, none at all. Have you tried the lady around the corner?
No, I'll do it now.
He'd now been wandering around this small area for a good half an hour.
Hello? I'm looking for a gas leak. Have you got any gas?
Oh, I haven't. I've got it on. Please.
Do you mind if
No.
I've got to have a look? Because
Please.
I've
Okay.
had reports in the area of a
Yes,
gas leak, you
okay.
see.
There you are, look.
Oh, it's just a gas service, is it?
Yes.
You just got this one. Any other gas appliances anywhere?
Well, not in this room, in the other room.
What happened to you then?
Well,
After several minutes, during which the man appeared genuine, he then began to act strangely.
no, I'd have to
You ever got a
get
glass of water?
Yes, of course. But I think you better let me do it because
All right.
there's a terrible tap.
He was sweating heavily.
Perhaps you'd like a cup of tea, would you?
No, I can't, son,
make
because
you
my
one.
meat's going up the other side of
I'll
the
make
road.
one
No,
willingly.
don't worry, because...
He suddenly appeared agitated and anxious to get away.
You know, he's
I've got gas
I've
fire
got
in
to
here.
join him. His other gas leaks in the air, you see. I'm sorry about that, love. I've got to...
He crossed the road back towards Roy Page's shop.
Up ahead of him, about 100 yards ahead, is the Suez Canal, a big wide ditch that runs right across this 14th fairway.
20 minutes had passed when Mrs. Martina Allen came in. She is the last known person to have seen Roy Page alive.
You want one with roses?
Dead straight on. The last open championship here, and this one they've allowed the ruck to grow in from the right.
How much?
£1.34.
Quiet, isn't it?
Put it in here.
Yet 3 further items had been rung up on the till after she left. Tom Coles had noticed that the shop had been closed for a little while. He knew Roy was a diabetic and was worried that he might be ill.
The 6 o'clock news from the BBC with Sue Lawley and Andrew Harvey.
Today, he did not think the children who went down the cliff were in any immediate danger. It's the 4th day of the inquest into the deaths of 4 of his pupils. The battle against the drug traffickers. The government is sending undercover agents. Big pay increases have been recommended for top civil servants, judges and senior members of the armed forces. Mrs. Thatcher has...
2 hours later, at 7:45, the police had been called.
I'll try and find where the mirror is. Check that room. Neil, in there!
Sometime between 5:20 and 6:10, Roy Page had been murdered.
So you better get an ambulance. Right, okay. I'll go outside.
Every gas appliance in the house had been turned full on. Well, Detective Superintendent Lou Clark, you're quite precise about the time that Roy was killed.
Well, Mrs. Allen says she left the shop about 5:20. We know that people went between 5:20 and about 6:10 and couldn't get in. The door was bolted, and a man was seen coming from the side of the shop, the one on the side.
We have a
on Elmora
reconstruction
Road.
of what was seen, yes.
Yes, about 6:10 to 6:15. The man was identical to the man seen earlier, posing as the gas board man. This time he was carrying something under his arm. We suspect that was the overall, which would now have been blood-stained.
We have a video fit of that man, if we can take a closer look at him once again. He's
Yes.
very heavily built, isn't he?
He is, some witnesses say, about 15 stone or more. He's a big man, 5'11" or more, 35 to 45 years, dark hair, and perhaps had a Welsh accent, wearing spectacles.
Why was Mr. Page murdered? Was the motive theft?
I would have thought it was theft, and I think it was a bungled crime. I think we were looking for a petty thief who goes in to distract shopkeepers and people in their homes so that he can steal. And I think Mr. Page caught him stealing, trapped him, and he had to kill Mr. Page to get out of the shop.
Well, as I said earlier, there was one vital clue left behind. It's this earpiece, which you're quite convinced, are you, that it was the killer who left this earpiece beside
It
Mr.
certainly
Page?
didn't belong to Mr. Page, and we know that that earpiece looked like this in its original state, from a typical transistor radio, some years old, but we know it didn't belong to the deceased, and a witness saw the gas man wearing an identical piece shortly after 4:30 that day.
And he was seen carrying a small black box too. Would this have been connected to a transistor radio?
Well, that's what we think. He's most probably using it to make people believe he's got some sort of instrument for detecting gas leaks.
What exactly did he steal?
He stole a cream-coloured plastic purse which had £700 in it, a white envelope with a name Paul written on the side in handwriting, that had £200, at least £149 from the till, and surprising, a hairbrush from the bedroom upstairs. This is the matching mirror that he didn't take, and as you see, there doesn't seem to be any reason to steal that at all, but it's missing from the premises. It's gone. And one thing I would like to say is that the deceased in this case was an ordinary working man. He worked 7 days a week, 7:30 in the morning to 8:30 in the evening, and his 2 sons and daughter are just the same, hard-working, ordinary people who are putting their life savings into offering a £5,000 reward leading to the arrest and conviction of their father's killer.
I hope you get some calls. Thank you very much indeed, Lou Clark.
Indeed, if you think you can help, please don't hesitate to call us 01811 8055, or you can call Bristol Police on 267 986. There's the number, 0272 for Bristol, 267 986.
Last September, 4 missing children dominated the headlines. One of them was Leonie Keating, and you may remember we featured the hunt for her killer on our October programme. The bodies of Leonie and 2 other children were found soon after they went missing, and arrests were made. But there was no trace of the 4th child, 6-year-old Barry Lewis from South London. His whereabouts remained a mystery for 3 months, until December, when his body was discovered in a field in Essex. Tonight, police are disclosing new evidence about the case in the hope that you might help catch Barry's killer. Our reconstruction begins in London at the market close to where he lived. Sunday morning, 15th of September, at East Street Market in Walworth. The stalls were busy with shoppers as usual. Just 200 yards away from the end of the market, at the junction with Dawes Street, Barry was staying temporarily at the house of friends, the Leightons, while his mother was waiting for rehousing by the council.
British diplomats in Moscow.
That day, Barry had lunch at the house with Denise Leighton and her children before going out to play with 7-year-old Jackie.
Are you coming out to play? Yes.
Where are you going?
I'm going to out in front.
All right then. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Barry and Jackie went down East Street to Trafalgar House in Bronte Close to play with their friend Michelle. Michelle's mother, Mrs. Ford, kept an eye on them as they played outside the flats. Then Michelle and Barry went up to the flat, leaving Jackie playing downstairs.
Get down from there before you break your neck.
Barry decided to go home, and Jackie went with him to the corner of Bronte Close.
All right, I'll see you later. I'm going home now. Bye.
Barry walked on down Blackwood Street towards East Street. What happened next is a mystery. By 4 o'clock on East Street, the market was gone, and Barry too had completely vanished. For 3 months, nothing was heard of him. Then in December, his body was found in a field 25 miles away. 16th of September, the day after Barry disappeared. On the road known as the Crooked Mile, just outside Waltham Abbey in Essex, a man had run out of petrol. He left his car at the entrance to Travers Piggery. Police have now been able to establish that the boy he was carrying was almost certainly Barry Lewis. He seemed sleepy and listless, but he was alive. The nearest garage, Abbey petrol station, was 3 miles down the road.
What's the can take?
About £2 worth.
Right, I'll pay for it now.
Thank you. Run out of petrol?
Yeah, up for a good mile.
Can you give this man in the child a lift back to his car up the Crooked Mile?
I'm sorry, I'm going the other way, Chingford.
There should be somebody who'll take you.
It's okay. I'll get there.
The man walked a few hundred yards up the Crooked Mile and stood hitchhiking at a junction opposite Lee Valley Nurseries. Seeing the boy and the petrol can, a local man on his way home stopped to help.
Can I give you a lift?
Yeah, please.
Where's your car?
It's in the entrance to a farm, just up the road on the right.
Would it be better to put the child on the back seat?
Nah, he'll be all right here.
Is the child okay?
He's a bit poorly. He didn't sleep well last night.
The driver noticed that the man seemed edgy and reluctant to talk. He drove him up the road past the pink house at Clapgate Lane.
Here it is. Over there.
The driver took them back to Travers Piggery. He remembers that the man's car was a red hatchback similar to a Talbot Horizon. It was in a tatty condition.
They managed now?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll be all right now.
Well, Barry's body was found just a mile away 3 months later. Superintendent Hatfull is leading the hunt for his killer. Perhaps you could take us through on the map where the man and boy went that day on the 16th of September.
Yes, the garage is in the centre of Waltham Abbey and is approximately 3 miles away from where the red car was parked and about 1.5 miles away from where the boy's body was eventually found.
Which was near the pink house in Clapgate Lane?
Yes, on the bridle path.
Right. The car seemed fairly distinctive. Do you think he might be still driving that car?
There's a possibility he may still have it. It was a red hatchback car, most probably a Talbot Horizon, described as about 5 to 7 years of age and in a fairly tatty condition.
Now, we saw the man on the film leave the car, and then the next we saw him was walking into Abbey petrol station. Somebody surely must have seen him on that 3-mile route carrying the boy. He must have looked quite conspicuous. Do you think he walked all the way carrying the boy anyway?
No, not only do I believe that somebody saw him, I'm positive somebody picked them up and gave them a lift. I desperately want to trace that motorist and the car that he himself was using when that happened.
What about the petrol station itself? Do you think there were many people there to see him?
Yes, it was a very busy evening in the petrol station, rush hour. We know that there were several other customers getting petrol, and in particular, there was one man who was in fact asked by the petrol attendant whether he could give the man and the boy a lift back along the Crooked Mile, and he declined because he was on his way to Chingford, which is opposite direction. We also desperately wish to find that man.
Right. Now, that incident was 24 hours after Barry had first disappeared. What do you think happened in those intervening 24 hours?
I'm convinced that Barry was certainly alive for 24 hours after he was kidnapped in the hands of his abductor. It's every likelihood that he was kept in that motor vehicle in the Epping Forest or South Essex or Hertfordshire area, and we want anybody who can remember seeing the unlikely of that man with the small boy and the car to come forward and speak to us.
Once again, can we have your description of the man? We have a video fit.
Yes, he was about 30 to 35 years old, 5 feet 10 inches tall, normal build. He's described as having a lined face or a wrinkled complexion, more than perhaps his years should show.
And he's a local man, is he?
Every indication from the way he spoke and the way he acted seems to show that he knew that area and he had some local knowledge of the places we've mentioned.
Right. Now, it's 4 months since Barry disappeared now. How urgent do you think it is that you find him?
It's vital that we find this man. It was a brutal and callous murder of a small boy by a man who went out looking for his victim, and having found him, I'm positive that he knew what he was going to do to him and how his end would be. I'm absolutely certain we will catch him, not only for what he did to Barry Lewis, but because we have the very real fear that having done this once, he will set out to do it again.
Mr. Hatfield, let's hope that somebody can help. If you can help in any way, please do ring us at Crimewatch on 01 811 8055. Or if you prefer, you can ring police direct at Chingford on 01 529 8666. That's 01 529 8666.
In our first case tonight, police are looking for a random killer, a man who's killed once and might kill again. His victim was a girl of 19, and detectives are appealing to you to watch this reconstruction very carefully to see if you can help. Think back to just before the new year, Sunday the 29th of December. It's the first Sunday after Christmas. The place? East London. Beside the canal at Hackney is an area of workshops and printworks, largely silent for the Christmas holiday. That Sunday, December the 29th, the roads here were deserted. But one printer's, Fairway Graphics, had deadlines to meet, and because of problems with machinery, Paul Tidyman, an assistant printer, had been asked to stay behind to do some overtime.
Oh, Alison. Yeah, look, it's me. Look, I'm going to have to work late tonight. Is that all right? Yeah? Do you want to come over here?
Well, you better tell me how to get there then.
Although Alison had been Paul's girlfriend for 3 years and they'd been engaged for 2, she'd never been to where he works.
Cross one road, and you'll see Fairway Graphics on the right-hand side. All right? Now walk through the gate, and I'll be there.
What time shall I leave?
Well, if you leave between about 5:30 and 6 o'clock, then I'll start looking out for you from around 7.
All right, see you later then. Bye. Thanks, Mum. I better go now, because I don't want to keep Paul waiting.
Well, you haven't had your sweet yet.
Oh, I won't have time for sweet. Anyway, I don't want to get fat like you, do I, Dad?
I do not.
Mum, could I borrow a couple of quid for my fare, please?
Yes, of course you can. That should be it.
Fine, thanks a lot.
All right,
I'll be
then.
off. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Yeah, bye.
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 With only enough money for her one-way fare, her sheepskin coat and Paul's directions, Alison set off. It was a bitterly cold evening. Alison walked 300 yards to the bus stop outside Upminster Bridge tube station. A passerby remembers seeing someone like Alison standing there, waiting, at around 5:45. The bus she took would have been a single-decker 244 or 248 to Romford Station. The journey would have taken about 10 minutes. From Romford, she took a 20-minute train journey to here, Stratford in East London. It was at Stratford Station that detectives had the last clear report of Alison being seen alive by the ticket collector, Rose Lee.
Excuse me, I think I've got myself lost. I've just come from Romford and I want it to Hackney Wick.
Well, why you've got to go straight back down to the bottom, into your left, over the bridge number 1.
Number 1. It's been freezing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cold.
Thanks. Bye.
Alison may have waited 15 minutes on platform 1 for the train to Hackney Wick. This is the North London Link Line, just after 7 o'clock, and Alison might have been the only passenger. The journey lasted just 2 minutes. Hackney Wick is the first stop. Police believe Alison arrived here at about 7:10. Though she may not have realised it, she was now just 5 minutes walk away from Paul in Fairway Graphics. But she never got there. From dozens of possibilities, detectives are now concentrating on 3 main theories about what happened in the hour before she died. Theory 1 is that Alison was followed from the train. Alison may have been lost, or she may have realised she was being followed. A minicab company remembers receiving a call from a young woman at 7:13.
Hello, I'd like a cab, please. I'm at Hackney Wick Station, and I want to go to Hackney. A delay? How long of a delay?
Either her time ran out, or she couldn't wait. The line went dead. The cab telephonist remembers that the caller sounded distressed. Detective's second theory is that after Alison got off at Hackney Wick, she was lost. Having made the call and failed to get a cab, she walked 50 yards to the junction with Berkshire Road. If she'd walked straight on, she'd have got to Fairway Graphics in 2 minutes. Instead, she may have turned right and continued down Wallace Road. It leads to the canal and to a printer's yard where people go looking for discarded proofs of girly magazines. It could have been she met her killer here. The third theory is that after making the phone call, Alison again walked to the junction with Berkshire Road, but this time she walked the right way, straight down the road towards Fairway Graphics. When she got there, she would have seen the sign saying Atlas Works, which she knew was another name for Fairway Graphics. But instead of going to the main doors, maybe she turned down to the side. It leads to the canal. Alison Day's body was found 300 yards away from Atlas Works in Hackney Canal. She'd been sexually assaulted and strangled. Leading the hunt for her killer is Superintendent Eric Brown. Perhaps we should stress straight away, those are 3 prominent theories. They're just best guesses, but there are other possibilities.
Yes, there are. Alison could have been picked up by a car, someone purporting to be a minicab, or she could have used the S2 bus.
Now, a lot of it is guesswork because the last definite sighting is Rose Lee, the ticket collector at Stratford. What do you know about the time from about 7 or 7:10, whenever it was, 7:10, 7:20, that she arrived at Hackney Wick?
Well, she got off the train at the telephone box. She made that telephone call, and eventually her body was found in the canal at 8:10.
How do you know she went into the canal at 8:10?
Because her watch stopped at about 8:10, and it's been examined forensically. And we can say that it did stop immediately. It went into the water, and other forensic examinations confirm that.
So she got off the train at 7:10 or 7:20 and was in the canal by 8:10?
Yes.
Now, what might people round there, if there were people round there, other than the killer, have heard or seen?
They might have heard Alison scream, or they might have heard a splash as this coat was put into the canal separately from Alison. Or they might have seen someone on the Trowbridge estate, which is the estate close to the scene, carrying a coat like this. And this was put into the canal very close to the Eastway Bridge.
Right. And you brought some shoes. These her shoes recovered from the canal?
Yes, that's... no, they're not. Her shoes, these are very like her shoes. Her shoes are missing. And we would be very interested to hear from anyone who's seen a pair of shoes like this discarded somewhere.
Have other women been attacked in this area?
Yes. women have been attacked in this area. We'd be very interested to hear from any women that have been attacked in Hackney Wick or Leighton or Bow, which are very close.
Now, the crucial time, presumably, is anybody who has been attacked or anybody who's been frightened by a man in that area, what, around Christmas time this year? This attack, remember, was the last Sunday of the year, the Sunday after Christmas.
Yes, that's right. That's the crucial time. But we'd also be interested to hear from women who've been attacked in, say, the last 3 or 4 years in that area.
Really, as far back as what, 1980, 81, 82?
Yes, that's right.
OK, well, if they will ring, please do. If you can help, do ring us now. Here's the number, 01811 8055. You can, if you want, ask to speak to a woman police officer. If you prefer, you can ask to speak to a BBC researcher. It is in absolute confidence. Or you can ring the police direct on 01488 5212 and ask for the Alison Day Incident Room. That's 01488 5212.
Well, now to this month's cases. 6 weeks ago, 28-year-old Steve Widnall, the manager of a supermarket, was shot dead in his store in Putney in South London. The object was robbery, but as you'll see, the criminals were either reckless, or they panicked, or else they killed quite casually, and presumably they might kill again. Our reconstruction begins on January the 30th, 11 days before the murder, with an incident in the store in Putney which may provide a motive for the killing which followed.
From Whiskey, receiving over. Can you go to the Presto supermarket, 62 the High Street, Putney? Report of an alarm bell ringing, over. Whiskey receiving 728. Premises of Presto's appear secure. Could you call the key holder out, please? From Whiskey, receiving over. Key holder on way, Whiskey out.
The key holder was the manager, Steve Widnall, and with the police called to another incident, Steve was alone when he arrived to switch off the alarm just before 11 o'clock. Steve knew the alarm had a tendency to go off without apparent cause, and with the police reassurance there'd been no break-in, it didn't occur to him that this was anything other than routine. Steve went to check exactly where in the supermarket the alarm had been triggered and arranged for an engineer to come and reset it.
Hello, mate. It's Presto's Putney here. We've had an alarm call.
Yes?
We'll have to get the engineer to reset it.
Right, your name, please?
Mr. Widnall, code 8759.
Widnall, OK. What zone went off?
24. It's the wine store.
Have you checked to see if anything set it off?
No, I'll do that now if you like.
Yes, please. I'll hold on for you.
OK, hang on.
On his way to check the store, Steve noticed that lights had been left on in the meat department. It was the first sign of anything out of the ordinary. The wine store was undisturbed.
Hello? Yeah, I've had a look and everything seems to be all right. Must have been a vibration or something set it off. Hang on, I just heard something. Must be someone on the premises. Get the police over here as quick as you can.
Put the phone down. Hurry up. Let's have it.
Knowing now that the police had been alerted, the gunmen were intent only on getting away. They left empty-handed.
Stay there.
When Steve heard the sound of a car starting, he felt it was safe to go to the window. He saw the gunman getting into a red Mark I Ford Capri. As the car turned into Putney High Street, he noticed half the registration. The car then turned left in the direction of Wandsworth.
Have you got a better description or index 728 over?
2 coloured men made off in red Capri, part index 607 in November. Car has a black vinyl roof, black grille on the rear window, headed east down Montserrat Road. 1 man armed, believed with a sawn-off shotgun. First male, 6'2", aged early 20s. Second of a similar description, whiskey 2 out.
Steve took the following week off work. He'd been badly shaken by the ordeal and he needed time to recover. His fiancée, Wendy Sanderson, remembers he didn't talk much about what had happened. She thought to save her from worry. The couple planned to marry in a few weeks' time, and they were looking forward to setting up home and starting a family together. It's Monday, the 10th of February, 11 days after the confrontation with the gunman. It's Steve Widnall's first day back at work. Wendy also worked at Presto's on the provisions counter. During the afternoon, Steve and Wendy took time off for an appointment with a local building society. They'd seen a 2-bedroomed flat in Norbury they hoped to buy. When they returned to the store, Wendy left their car parked outside the rear goods entrance. It's now 10 to 7 that evening. The store closes at 6 on a Monday, and by now everybody had gone home except Wendy, who was waiting for Steve to finish locking up.
Wendy?
Are you ready now?
I'll just go and finish locking the stock room, and then I better go and lock the car park. I'll see you around the back in a moment.
OK, I'll wait for you by the back door.
OK.
Normally, Steve set the alarm and left the store by the front entrance. And he was intending to do this after he'd locked the car park. As Wendy waited, the sequence of events began that would cost Steve his life.
Don't worry. Everything's going to be all right.
Steve, there's someone looking in at the back door.
OK, babe. While we're here, I'll zip out the back and lock up the car park.
Steve wasn't concerned as there were often vagrants around at the back of the store.
Oh, babe, it's 7 o'clock already.
Stay there. The money. Open the safe. The money.
Don't hurt him! He'll give you the money!
Get the keys.
I can't get through.
Steve Widnall was shot in the back at point-blank range as he lay helplessly on the floor. Wendy was forced at gunpoint to search through her dying fiancé's pockets for keys to the safe. But the safe could only be opened by combination. There were no keys. They left, Wendy believes, heading in the direction of Lacey Road.
Hold on, babe, hold on. It's going to be all right. Hold on. Please, please.
Within seconds of being shot, Steve Widnall was dead. Well, leading this inquiry is Detective Superintendent Derek Todd. The first question is why they needed to kill him. Has any motive come to light?
No, there's no reason at all. All that we know is that we think the motive was robbery.
How certain are you that it was the same 2 men in both incidents?
We're pretty certain. The description given by Mr. Widnall in the first incident ties pretty closely to that of one of the men on the second
Yes, we have on the screen there Steve's identikit picture from that first incident.
Yes, the man was 6'2" and aged between 20 and 22 years, and that resembled very closely the description given by Wendy on the second incident.
Yes, we have the artist's impression there from Wendy, and that's her description from the man from the second incident, who you think is the same man.
Yes, I do. The only slight difference, as one can see, is the hair. Quite clearly, in the second incident, the man had ringlets.
What about the man who shot Steve? We have Wendy's description of him too.
Yes, he was much shorter, about the same height, about 5 feet, same age, I should say, 5 feet 7 or 8 in height.
But that's the most detail you could get.
That's right. She couldn't identify him at all.
Now, I know there are a number of things which actually baffle you about this crime. What are they?
Well, the main thing is the fact that the men were at the back door at all. Steve Widnall usually left the shop by the front door, and we just cannot understand why the men should be waiting at the back.
So it's quite likely somebody would have seen people loitering around at the back.
Well, that's right. They certainly wouldn't have known at what time he was likely to come out the back, if at all. And we just feel that they must have been there for some time, and yet we found nobody who actually saw them there.
And Steve was shot at close range, so somebody should have seen perhaps somebody with blood-stained clothing.
Well, that is right. According to what Wendy told us, one of the men went through Steve's pockets, and quite clearly he would be heavily bloodstained, certainly in the arm area.
Now, the gun they used was a sawn-off shotgun.
That is correct.
Using quite unusual ammunition, you think? One of these 2 cartridges here?
Yes, that is correct. The scientists have been able to tell us it's one of those 2. It's Mionchi make. It's an Italian make imported into this country. And certainly one of the 2 is quite unusual in the home counties.
So what you need really is an arms dealer, perhaps, who remembers selling that.
Well, that's right. Two things, really. One, any arms dealer who remembers selling this type of ammunition to our suspects, or indeed anybody who has ammunition like this and have had it stolen and haven't reported it to police.
Do you have any theories on how the 2 men got into the supermarket on the first incident?
We can only assume that they hid in the shop while it was actually open. There's certainly no sign of forced entry anywhere.
Because their car must have been parked outside for some time. It was quite distinctive, wasn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, we're baffled about that as well, the fact the car must have been there for some time. The car is a red Ford Capri with a black vinyl roof. It has quite distinctive black slats on the rear window and 2 aerials at the front.
And Steve saw half the number plate?
Yes, he did, 607N November, but we have established that that is a false number.
Right. Well, let's hope you can call and help us with something. The number here, if you can help, is 01 811 8055. You can ring in absolute confidence. Or you can call the incident room at Earlsfield Police Station on 01 947 6121. That's 01 947 6121.